traffic.
Numbers are irrelevant. They receive as they themselves gave, and they serve the higher
Hello there,
purpose.
Sir from 17 once again. This is my Evil Within Akumu difficulty. No upgrade, no keys, walkthrough. This is Chapter 10, the Craftman Tools, Part 1.
Traps these vermin.
I think this is a very tough level, and I think it's a very tough level for some good reasons. The enemy placements that differ from the previous difficulties to this one
Not mere research.
are making and breaking the difficulty.
This is abhorrent.
On Survivor, when you get to the second floor and you grab the battery, I believe a sniper turns up from that point onwards and starts assailing you. On this difficulty, and perhaps on Nightmare, he assails you from the very first window you come to, and it makes all the difference. Because he one-hit kills you and he's very accurate. And the funny thing with the snipers is, the closer you are to them, the worse they are at shooting you. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, but it seems to be the way they work. And the thing with this mission is, there's so many opportunities to let the enemies kill themselves. You put yourself in bad situations to try to make it work. And you try to force it a lot. That's what I've found anyway. And you can get caught, you can get unlucky, and you can end up repeating sections you really shouldn't have. And the problem with this is trying to rush that first checkpoint. If you know what you're doing and you're lucky, you can probably rush the entire thing running without killing anybody. But the problem is the checkpoint won't despawn the enemies, so you'll still have people to tend with. And the only parts of the game that I would really recommend, unless you're going for a speedrun, to completely run past, are areas where you don't revisit them. And this is an area where you have to go back into the central column to proceed. But that being said, and as well as I do have issues with the mission, I think this is one of the most interesting levels on the game. Not only do I get a massive God Hand vibe from it, because it reminds me of the circus level on that, but it's just a fun and twisted take on a place to navigate. Because so far, we've been in mental asylums, we've been in hospitals, we've been in dirty, dingy looking places, we've been all kinds of hellish looking environments. And this one kind of adds that extra dimension of tongue-in-cheek, twisted nature. Like, people's irrational fear of clowns is pretty much this. You know, just that kind of juvenile, child-reminiscent feeling of something that we then warp. And I really appreciate that, so my strategy here is very simple. I trip the alarm, and then I throw a bottle at his face. I then stab him in the jaw like, Yah! Like that. And then I move into this next room. In this next room, if you're quick enough, you can actually rush the two people, but I don't recommend it because it's kind of tricky. So the glass gets shot out. He threw something. Wow. There's the detection on the swing, which is fantastic, as you just saw. You literally get no range whatsoever. You know, he couldn't even waft his own ass when he does those melee swings, so do not trust them. They're very dangerous. Apparently I'm going to shoot this lady in the face. So be careful by the windows, because you can get shot like this. Come on, dude, don't disappoint. There we go. Now we need to kill him. So wait for him to pop up and shoot him in the face. Obviously the weapon kind of sways. It's not the easiest thing to do, but once you've done that, you can breathe a little bit, and then all we need to do now is go up this ladder, and then there is a couple of traps, and I believe 3 haunted. One of them is fat, one of them has a gun, and then there is a checkpoint. But it's really easy to mess this up, because for some reason the awareness of the enemies at the top of this ladder is kind of bizarre. Sometimes they'll just run at you now, and I've never really figured out why that is. But if you can get a lucky run here, what you want to do is you want to stab the fat guy in the back of his head, and then you want to stab the other guy. That's best case scenario, but it doesn't always work that way. And because there is a bomb mixing things up, it can be very dangerous to rush this area, so be very careful here. Of course, do not break the boxes to the right, or you'll just attract everything in this place. But the bomb is just on the wall there. The fat guy patrols to the left there, and the other guy patrols to the right up that corridor. Up that corridor that we're looking at now is where the battery is, but I believe there's another enemy down there, so we want to take this slow if we can, so that we don't make mistakes. So here comes the fat guy. This should work where they both turn away kind of at the same time. So fat guy will do it first, because he... Oh no, they did it at the same time. That's synchronous. Awesome. So we stab him, and that went perfectly. And then we go and get him. So it would seem I'm opting to wait for him to come back, so then I can follow him down that lane again. One of the things I'm never quite certain on is if stealth kills count towards the proximity sensors of the bombs. So I'm kind of conscious of executing him right now, but we'll see. Am I going to shoot the bomb? That'd be dangerous. And it's also that thing of, ideally, I'd love to get the trap parts from it, but the amount of times I've died by trying to do that is more so than the enemies killing me, because the timing on it is very strict, and sometimes I just mess it up. So that was what we wanted, and now I'm kind of nonplussed about who's still left. So I'm going to try and go for the... No, I'm not. What am I doing? I'm picking up the flashbolt. If you go out onto the balcony, I think we're going to see another sniper, so we need to be careful out here. The good news is we can shoot him in the face because he's directly across from us. Do you see him spawn just then? What am I doing? Oh. What am I doing? That guy's dead. That guy's not dead. Good job, Chris. You're more observant than post-commentary, Chris, apparently. That was weird. I don't even know why he was there. So that didn't work, but, you know, it's worth trying. And then this kind of goes to hell, so... Shotgun on, desperation mode engaged. I want this checkpoint, get away from me. Please burn and don't bang me on the ground. Oh, you see, I'm not even bothering with matches. Maybe I don't have them. But pistol coming through for me here a little bit. Gotta give it credit when it deserves it. So breaking the boxes, picking up some of the juice. 31 trap bolts, that's good. We need to keep saving those. My advice as far as those go is try and save them as best you can, but at the same time, they really save your life, and this walkthrough is going to prove that even at the worst time, with no ammo, you can still win. You just have to be creative, or insane, or a bit of both, and we can all get a little nuts, as Michael Keaton makes us remember in that famous scene from Batman. So, is he alive? We're about to find out. Yes. I thought it would make him stand up and be stunned, because that's the type of thing that happens in games when they have preset animations, you know. There is no animation for him being stunned on the ground, so maybe it just warps him to being standing, and it didn't, is the answer to your question that you didn't ask. So here is the sniper. We're going to get rid of him off the spawn. Good night. And you need to be aware here that the game spawns in enemies when we get to the bottom of this ladder. I don't know why it does it. It's kind of just the Akumu cock block that this game likes to do. He's just on this corner. Oh, he's just there. Jesus Christ, that was lucky. So I'm going to try my best to let the blade kill him, like this. Oh wow, the bear trap got him and the blade hit him. A couple of things you need to be aware of. You cannot aim when you're crouched. If you aim, you'll stand up and the blade will insta-kill you. If you get hit by a trap, most of the time you'll be unlucky enough to stand up back into the blade and die, because that's how the game works. Obviously, if you mantle when it comes around, you're going to die as well. I love the music. It's so trolley. It's just that perfect, you know, going insane, mocking tune. It's such a great choice, and it really works. And this is hilarious, because these dudes come out crouched, and if you shoot them, they stand up. So you can use the trap to your advantage. You don't have to shoot them. Sometimes they will stand up, but every so often they get a little smart. So I like to waste ammo, as you can clearly see. The thing you need to be conscious of is bear traps. For some reason, this difficulty puts bear traps everywhere. Like, is there a section you remember being really easy on your last difficulty? There's a bear trap in it now, and it makes it so much harder than you remember. It's just all the time, bear traps. Another thing too, this might be me, and in fact I want to ask you a question here, folks, because you're the only consensus I can get. For the people who've played the game quite a lot at this point, have you ever had issues with the crouch, where you've pressed it, or you've held it depending on if you have toggle or hold, where Sebastian has took forever to sit down? Anybody had that? It seems to me like you can't crouch when you're in the middle of animations. For instance, if you're running, there's a delay on him going into crouch, and sometimes when you combine it with the frame rate issues and the choppiness of the game at times, it can produce some interesting moments, but there are times when I'm pressing buttons and it feels like he should be responding quicker than he does. And the only other action that feels the same, except for pulling the gun, is putting the gun away. How many times have you pressed to holster the weapon and he doesn't do it immediately? Am I going insane? Is it just my game, or has anybody else felt this? Because it makes the game feel more sluggish than it is. And everybody's already mentioning, just how old school this game feels and how sluggish it feels. All of this is intentional, folks, and it's intentional to make it feel harder. It's that old Resident Evil thing. People want classic survival horror, but they forget what that means. Classic survival horror is bad controls, bad camera, and dying a lot. Like, that's what it used to mean. And don't get me wrong, you could get good at it, because you can get good at anything. Look at Resident Evil 4. You play a modern game with modern controls, and you go back to Resident Evil 4, and it feels like the worst game on the planet. But after a few hours, you're fine. It's like that with a lot of things. If you put the time in, you will learn to love the thing you hated. It's like anything else. It's kind of like Stockholm Syndrome. And somebody left an interesting comment saying that the speedrunners are calling the game a piece of shit and broken and how it doesn't work and how it's not fit to be speedrun and all these other things. And I find that really funny because a lot of people speedrun very bad games that have really bad mechanics and known problems with them, but they've played it to such an extent that they know how to use them and they're completely used to them, so they don't even see that anymore. They're too busy looking for optimal paths, and it just seems funny for them to, off the cuff, gut reaction to be this game can't be speedrun when no game feels like it can be speedrun in the first week of playing it. That's the whole point, isn't it? Like, my speedrun was 3 hours and 33 minutes, and I did no sequence breaks, I did no skips, I couldn't figure out any of those things, because I don't know any of those things. All I did was run past enemies I would have normally killed, I didn't pick anything up, and I skipped cutscenes. I was always trying to run, I had upgraded sprint to run, so I got through the game much quicker. I had weapons to kill bosses very quickly, and I just went on an optimal path. Even then, I reckon you can get sub 3 hours on this game quite easily once you know exactly where you're going and you've got it all memorised and you're not accidentally going in the wrong directions. And then on top of that, when people start figuring out, sequence breaks and skips and things, you're going to probably bring that down even further. Like, the only break I found in the game is on this sequence now, and I can't replicate the time I did it, which is on this part. When you climb on this ladder, you're going to see a trauma for the first time, and Sebastian's going to get scared and climb up the ladder. For some reason, he never got scared on my last playthrough, and he just continued climbing even though the monster was there, and it was really weird. And on my next playthrough, he got scared like 3 or 4 times when I tried to climb, so let's see if I kept it in.
What the?
No. See how he does that? Well, for some reason, I don't know what, I was not scared, and I was able to go down the full ladder first attempt, and that would have saved, 5 seconds? It's not a big skip. Like, I think the second skip, if you could call it that, is jumping down the ladder at the end of, I think it's The Keeper, Chapter 7. And that saves a ladder journey, which is, 10 to 20 seconds tops, and, I'm no speedrunner, and I never claim to be. It's not really my thing, but I'm sure in time there will be people speedrunning this game, because it definitely seems fit for it. Any game you can beat in 3 hours is a game that people are going to speedrun, guaranteed. But this is the hardest part of the level for me. And it stems from a lack of understanding on how the game works. This room through here is full of enemies. It's also got one of the haunted Ruviks. It's got a ton of traps. It's a real bad situation. My strategy here was to kick the door to lure them to the door, and then stealth kill them as they leashed back to their original position. Admittedly, it's a very slow strategy, but it's safe and it works. The problem I was having here is I wanted to get the Ruvik haunted out so that I could hit him with a shotgun and burn him. And the problems I was having was, A, he wouldn't turn up, B, he would do the jazz hands before he turned up, which is something I have to run away from, and I have a really good strategy to stay safe from it on this mission, and you're going to see me do it because it happens. And then finally, the shotgun didn't knock him over, and I didn't want to waste ammo because, as you can tell, I don't have ammo to waste. One thing I've learnt through the trials of playing this walkthrough is that the freeze bolt will kill the haunted Ruvik. He's not a special, he's not unique, he can be killed just like all the others, and if I'd have known that, I would have ran into that room and shot him with it at the beginning, and then I would have probably either kited these enemies or done something different. Because I know from experience here, if you can get to the next checkpoint, even with all these assholes chasing you, if you die on the next checkpoint, when it repopulates you, none of them will be there. But did you notice how he did the scream? That means the hands are chasing me. If you climb onto this ladder, they can't get you. If you climb to the top of the ladder, they can get you. And it lasts forever, folks. It truly does. But there it is anyway. This is a good strategy. It's just, hopefully you won't need it. Hopefully you'll get through there with stealth or with better tactics than I could do. But I tried stealthing it for about 40 minutes and I kept getting fucked up, so in the end I was like, I'm going to do it my way, and my way is often ugly, so let's embrace the ugliness and just go in there with a fire poker and let's get nuts. And it works, it's just slow. The good news here, if you're speedrunning, you can run through that entire room. Very simple, you just have to make sure you don't get hit by the trap. Here we go, can we get him? Look, didn't knock him over. Didn't knock him over, 2 shells wasted. What a load of shit. I'm surprised they didn't just let him kill me. And that's one of the inconsistencies I don't like about this game. And I really like this game. I think The Evil Within is one of the best games that's come out this year. I think if it's your type of game, like it's my type of game, you're going to have a lot of fun with it, and you're going to love it just as much as I do. But there are parts of it that Resident Evil 4 did better a long time ago, and I just don't understand why they would make these mistakes on things like that. The one thing you could rely on every difficulty, regardless of upgrades, was if you put a shotgun shell in a chainsaw guy's face, he would fall down. That was very close. Did you see what happened then? I got immunity in that animation for some reason. It seems like perhaps the grab, oh no, this is bad news, do not do what I've just done. Do not do this, watch. You are not safe up here, because she's just spawned in just then. See what I mean? Never ever get off at the top of the ladder. Do you know what happened then? I believe my controller was moving by itself and it put me up the top of the ladder. It's never something you want to do. And as you can see, the AI is great, and it's one of those moments where I physically can't aim low enough to shoot him because there is... it's one of those games that Capcom makes where you can't shoot your foot and you can't look high enough to see, you know, directly above you because this guy's shoulders joints don't twist that way. And if you ever played Lost Planet, it was a game that was the exact same. You could only look 75% of the way up, and a lot of the bosses on that game were taller than you. It's like, what the fuck is the point? Are these people stupid? But it's like the sensitivity. The sensitivity on this game is far too low, and the only thing I can think of is the only way to keep the frame rate steady. Because if you're twirling the camera around all the time, the game's having to work twice as hard to populate areas and depopulate them so that the game runs smoothly, and it just can't keep up with it. And it's one of those things where, for the most, this game runs really well at its pace. If you push it any further at your pace, it doesn't run so well. We're going to finally kill this bitch. Oh, denied. And he was dead then, but I burnt him anyway. So I really like the Agony crossbow. I've mentioned this before, but the bolt that I just used, I wish worked a little differently. If anybody played Bioshock 1, and I'm hoping everybody says I played Bioshock 1, because Bioshock 1 is a fantastic game. It's one of those genre-defining narrative moments for the 360 and for the PlayStation 3's lifestyle, because it was a big game at the time. Was it? Did it come out on PS3? I can't remember. It must have come out on PS3, surely. I hope it did. If it didn't, you're missing out, guys. Get it on PC. But Bioshock 1, fantastic game. It had a crossbow in it where if you could aim with the crossbow and you could land, you would do some sick damage with it. And it would pin people to the walls, and it was almost a guaranteed pin. And my strategy was kind of cheesy, but also incredibly amazing. It involved using a chameleon perk and a crossbow, and what would happen is I would find the splicers, I would stand still, it would make me invisible, they wouldn't know where I was, and then I would wait for them to stop while I was invisible, and I would aim with all the time in the world and shoot them in the head, and it would pin them to the walls. And that's how I played that game, outside of telekinesis, because telekinesis is the most overpowered move in any game I've ever played. And it was really super effective. I wish this game was the same. Like, aiming that crossbow is kind of tricky, so it would be nice if the payoff was an insta-kill. And I appreciate that it shouldn't insta-kill perhaps the bigger enemies, or maybe if it's just a headshot, then it's an insta-kill. But nonetheless, it would be nice to feel that empowerment with it. And there are some moments when it totally does that. In Chapter 15, during the Gauntlet fight, because there's only 2 fights in Chapter 15, and there's an amazing moment of my recording, which I hope is going to make it, where there's a lady mantling up towards me, and I'm running out of ammo quick. The only thing I have, I think, is an agony bolt, and it's one of those. and I shoot her as she's climbing, and it knocks her 20 feet into the air across the entire playing field, and it's just one of those hilarious moments that, even in the heat of battle, in the intensity and the insanity of almost constant impending doom, I was able to have this really funny moment because of this one weapon, and I just wish it happened a little bit more frequently, because it's such a cool tool. But we're going to stab this guy in the back of the head, and he deserves it. And the next checkpoint is a very bad placement of checkpoints, in my opinion. Instead of giving you a checkpoint as you enter the room, it should give you one as you exit it. That way you never have to disarm that trap again, and you never have to push the battery back in and watch that cutscene of everything turning on. You know, sometimes I wonder just who the people are that are in charge of the cutscenes and why they don't do a better job, because I'm hoping they only have one job, because if they don't, then it's more forgivable. But if they only have one job, they're very bad at that job. And this is a game, for the most, that has positive checkpoints. However, they're not as good as they could be, and I really don't understand after you playing the game once how you couldn't notice that. You know, there's a checkpoint on chapter 12 where you have to watch the beginning of the bus journey, you have to watch the boss attack the bus, and then you have to wait to recover until you start fighting the boss, for the boss to then kill you in a second, and then it loads, and after the 25 seconds of loading, you have to watch the fucking thing again. So it turns out, if you're failing there, and on this difficulty there's a chance you will, that you're wasting a minute of your life before you even get to shoot. And that's all because the person who said, I want a checkpoint there, didn't say, 1 second, just 1 second, whoa, there. You see? See what we've done there? Now, we can front load all that bullshit, and then we can just load this bit. We don't have to load the cutscene, but maybe that's a fundamental lack of understanding on how the game is programmed. Maybe that cutscene is loading the fight, and maybe it's there so that you don't have to witness a loading screen. And as much as I like the progressive approach to hiding loading, sometimes I would rather just do one big massive load. Like, give me an hour load at the beginning when I turn it on, but then have it never ever load ever again. You know, like, that would be beautiful. Like, GTA is perfect for that. It takes about 5 minutes to boot, but then when it does boot, you're never waiting. You're hardly ever waiting. Like, it's so smooth for that kind of thing. And then there are games that just don't load. You know, those ones are amazing. I don't know how they do it, but intelligently hiding loading screens, I hope we get to a point where we can hide it in gameplay. That would be amazing. Or we get to the point where we're so powerful that we don't even need to load. I don't know. You know, who knows? Science, bitches.